Welcome to Boom, where we have
Biomechanics on our minds.
Boom.
Boom, 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 boom.
Melissa, I have a surprise bit of boom for you.
Ooh, I love surprises.
Did you know the type of electrode used when measuring EMG is actually one of the main sources of error? In fact, the variety of electrode type, the size, inter-electrode distance, and the locations of the electrodes themselves can all have adverse consequences on data collection.
Definitely. The design of the electrode is even more important when incorporating this with human-machine interfaces like the exoskeletons we've been talking about. For example, you don't want to introduce artifacts into your signals when the suit is directly over the sensors.
That makes so much sense. I mean, the only way to get accurate data is to use the right equipment for your study, and it's so nice that our sponsor Delsys has such a wide variety of reliable EMG solutions.
If our listeners would like to enter the drawing and have a chance at winning some of the latest Delsys EMG equipment, you can visit delsys.com/boom.
Today we are talking with Rafael Reimann Baptista. Rafael is a professor in the School of Health and Life Sciences at the Pontifical Catholic University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. He coordinates a laboratory of evaluation and research in physical activity, currently carrying out studies on biomechanics of gait in older adults. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and we would also love it if you could give the Portuguese pronunciation of your university, because I couldn't handle that one.
You did great.
Okay, so thank you for inviting me. And in Portuguese, the name of my university is Pontificia Universidade Católica do Rio Grande do Sul.
Yeah, I feel like that's
It's
what
a
I
lot
said.
more beautiful.
but-
Okay, yours was beautiful too.
Thank you.
Well, we're so excited to have you here today, and we'll start off with our first question. When did you first know that you wanted to be a biomechanist? English first, and then you can always add the Portuguese if you want.
Thank you. I'm very excited too. For me, it's an honor to be here. And well, it's funny because I started my career in exercise physiology, and then I was studying sports physiology with rowers, right, with athletes. And one day I invite my girlfriend. At that time, she was my girlfriend. Nowadays, she's my wife. I invited her to come to the lab and to check what I was doing, the research that I was doing, and the experiments and so on. And then I was showing all the equipments, the physiology equipment, and saying, "Oh, look this is a gas analyzer. I can measure VO2 using this, or this is a lactate analyzer. I can collect blood and check the lactate during exercise." And in the same experiment, there was a colleague of mine from biomechanics that was she was measuring forces the with a strain gauge in the rowing ergometer. And then my wife saw that device, the strain gauge, and she asked me, Rafael, what is this sensor here? And then I said, no, this is nothing. This is just a sensor for measuring forces. And she said, no, this is important. This is what you should study. This is what you should be doing. And then I realized that I was so in love with physiology that I was not considering the physics behind the movement, right? And from that day on, I started to study biomechanics more carefully, and then I felt in love about biomechanics too. And then in my PhD, I switched from physiology to biomechanics, and this is how everything started.
Wow. These stories are so awesome, and I feel like they always involve people. And that personal connection. And it says you said you fell in love with biomechanics, but it sounds like you also fell in love with your girlfriend at the time and now
Yeah,
wife.
that's right.
And it's those questions that really, you know, that it's something that's going to impact your future, right? Or if it's like those questions that really just hit in a different way that you keep thinking about and obsessing over, and you're like, oh wait, this is really a direction I need to move in, or something I need to consider moving forward. And it's amazing, those just sort of fleeting moments. You know, you're asked a million questions in a day, but it's just like those ones that really change the trajectory of your career and life, that are so fascinating.
That's right. That's right. And this is very true because in the end of my master's, one day my supervisor talked to me and he said, "Well, Rafael, you have changed your career path from physiology to biomechanics, and this can open a lot of different doors for you." And then I asked, how, what are you talking about, why do you think like this? And then he said, well, you know what, you was going to become a physiology professor, right, a physiologist, and now you can work with physiology and biomechanics as well, so you can apply for a position as a biomechanics professor or a biomechanics researcher, but you can also apply as a physiology professor or something like that. And then I said, yeah, maybe you are right. And years later, turns out that he was right.
But initially, you were a physical education teacher at one
Yes, that's
point,
right.
correct? And what was your trajectory there? How did you end up going from physical education to then now, supervising dissertations in electrical
Yeah,
engineering?
that's right. Well, I'm not supervising in electrical engineering anymore. This was until last
Okay.
year or so. Uh, but during
Okay.
almost 4 years, I was doing that. But okay, let's answer your question first. Well, I don't know in USA or in other countries, but here in Brazil, in physical education, in the undergrad course, right, we have a course about human physiology, right? And then in the beginning of the physical education program, I was not that much into the program. I was just thinking, okay, I will do physical education and become a teacher, and that's it. But then when I started the human physiology course, it was like, you know, that speech from Steve Jobs in a Stanford graduation or something, when he said that at some point in your career you look back and you see all the dots connecting. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And then when I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
studying human physiology during my physical education undergrad program, right? It was something like that. I realized that's why I have chosen physical education. And then I had a very inspirational professor. He was a very good teacher. And then I thought, oh my God, I want to be like this guy. I want to know human physiology so deeply, like he is able to teach us. And this was the moment when I decided that I want to be a professor and start doing research and this kind of thing.
Yeah, I really love that story. I've been reading a book on recognizing serendipitous moments in your life, or moments of coincidence in your life, and actually acting upon that. And as I'm hearing this, it just seems like you're a really inspired person, inspired especially by the people around you, and then really taking that and then implementing it in your life and allowing that to shape your journey, which is really cool to hear. So thank you for sharing all of that with us. And we would love to learn more now about what your current work is in your research lab and what you're excited to be working on right now.
Right. So, well, as I just mentioned, my former master supervisor, he said, "Oh, one day biomechanics can open a lot of doors for you, right?" And one of the first doors that opened to me as a PhD and master supervisor was in electroengineering graduate program, right? So this was a huge challenge because as a health profession, right, it was very strange to me to be in an engineering program. I don't know nothing about computer science or how to process data. Even working with biomechanics, I always, and of course, because I came from physiology, right? When I see biomechanics, I always see more the bio than the mechanics. And then I started working in this electroengineering program. And then after 3 or 4 years, I switched for biomedical gerontology program that we have here in my university. Is a graduate program related to the School of Medicine. So it's related to geriatrics and gerontology. And then I work mostly with gait in older adults, right? Biomechanics of. But I am also working in the dentistry program with odontology. Yeah, because I realized that the odontologists, they are interested in electromyography of masseter and temporal muscles, the muscles of the mastication, right? Yeah,
Help you
yeah,
chew.
that's right. So in terms of research and masters and PhD supervising, those are my main activities right now.
Wow, that's awesome. Sounds like you're doing a lot, in a lot of different areas. You know, it's great to see the breadth. And I'm wondering a little bit. You're unique in that you are at a Catholic university, and I don't know if we've talked to many guests here that are professors at Catholic universities. So, would you share a little bit about how that is influential in either your life or your work, or how that
Yeah,
influences your
right.
role?
Just give me a second. I will close the door of my office, okay? Just
Okay.
well, here in Brazil, we have, let's say, um, three business models in universities, right? We have public universities that mostly are federal universities, right? And then those universities are for free for the students. And then on the other side, on the very other side, we have 100% private universities here in Brazil. And then you have, of course, to pay for everything. And those are profit universities, right? The main focus, the business model
Right.
is profit. And then you have something in the middle that we call communitary universities here in Brazil. Those are non-profit universities. Um, the students, they have to pay for the education, but we have a lot of scholarships and programs to help people to have education.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an intermediary model of business, right? A business model in universities here in Brazil, because my university is a non-profit university. all the money that the university can make goes to research, scholarships, or build infrastructure in the campus or something like that, or social programs, So this is this is why I mean the Catholic model, right, is very related to this non-profit and social aspect of education and non-profit, right? So work in a Catholic university like PUC, we say here in Brazil just PUC, right? And there are several
Okay.
PUCs in Brazil. We have the PUC from Rio Grande do Sul, that is the university where I work, but we have PUC in Rio de Janeiro, that I believe that is a Brazilian city you might have heard about, Rio de Janeiro, Carnival and everything,
See.
Cristo, Redentor, right? The Cristo, Jesus Christ, that we have in Rio de Janeiro, right?
Yes.
So we have PUC in several cities of Brazil, and this is the model. It's Catholic, it's non-profit, it's there is a very huge social commitment with education and so on. So it's very interesting to work in a university like this, especially in a country like Brazil, right?
Right. Can you share a little bit more what you mean about that? Like a country like Brazil, are you speaking in that it's an economically developing country, or yeah, and what it was like to sort of develop your lab in that
Okay,
environment?
well, I don't know what you heard about Brazil and what the listeners know about Brazil.
Yeah, tell us your
We-
perspective.
a few years ago, people used to think that Brazil was a jungle, right? And we live with monkeys and things. I believe now things are different. I remember in the
Yeah.
90s, I think, when a very famous, at least internationally speaking, heavy metal band from Brazil called Sepultura. Do you know Sepultura? You have never heard
No,
about?
we'll have to add a
Might be,
link to
yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Are you a big you're a big heavy metal
I
fan, right?
am
I
a
think you
metalhead,
shared that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Sepultura is a very famous Brazilian heavy metal band. And when they started having success in the 90s, people used to think that, oh my God, you came from Brazil, you live in the jungle, you live with monkeys, right? Of course, because we have the rainforest and all this thing. And of course, now
Yeah.
things are different with internet and so on. People know much more about Brazil. But again, I don't know what you heard about Brazil, but Brazil is a huge country, huge continental country, right? Millions of people, but it's a very poor country. I mean, we have
Mm,
huge contrast, right? We have very rich people
Mhm.
on one side, one hand, and very poor people on the other hand. And of course, we have middle class in the middle, right, trying to survive. And so it's very challenging to live in Brazil. We have to face a lot of
Mhm.
violence. And when I mean violence, I'm
Mm.
talking about you can be with your car in a traffic light, and then someone can put a gun in your face and say, "Get out of the car! I want your
Mm.
car, or I want your iPhone." So it's yeah, it's very
Wow.
difficult to live here. So that was I
Mm.
was this is what I was trying to say when I was explaining the Catholic
Mhm.
model of universities and non-profit and a university that
Mm.
wants to share education, right? Because we believe that by educating the population, we can develop our country, right? And my
Mm.
university
mm-hmm.
is very
Mm,
focused on innovation as well, technology innovation and entrepreneurship. So we believe that by
Mhm.
innovating, we can also contribute to the development of the country, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and then putting this in context to set up a biomechanics lab that it's very expensive, right? And you have to take into account that
Mm.
since all the equipments are imported for us, right? Because Vicon is American, BTS it's Italian, and so on, right? So everything you have to import, the taxes are very high in Brazil for importation. As we have, I believe that the most expensive iPhone in the world because the taxes are huge. So to have an iPhone
Wow.
here is very
Wow.
expensive because of the taxes, right? So it
Wow.
was very difficult in the beginning to start the laboratory. But the history behind the laboratory is very funny also because I started to put this laboratory together, let's say, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And this was before Brazil faced a huge politics and economical crisis. You might have heard that some years ago we have an impeachment of our president, and this was the second impeachment that Brazil faced in his story of democracy. And so this was before this impeachment of the president and before a huge economic and political crisis that not only we but our world suffered some years ago, right? Before the pandemics, that crisis that impacted USA too, right? And a lot of people um, without jobs, remember?
Yeah.
Uh, and at that point, let's say 6 or 7 years ago, my university had a grant, right, in which the researcher could apply to this grant. It was an internal grant from the university itself with money from the university, this non-profit, right, model that I just said. And then I had a colleague from the physical therapy, and he said, "Oh, Rafael, I have this Italian guy from BTS Bioengineering, a company of biomechanics devices, and he wants me to sell devices, and I don't have money. I'm a biomechanicist. Are you interested? Do you want to talk with him?" And I said, "Well, I don't have money now as well, but I love biomechanics. I love technology. Put me in contact with him. Let me know about new technologies, right?" And then I started to talk with this guy from BTS, and he started to try to sell the devices to me, and he started to explain that, oh, in our company you can buy either a complete gait lab or you can buy piece by piece and put your lab together, and I said, this can be interesting. And then the university had this grant in which the researcher could submit a proposal, a research proposal, to ask, uh, let's say, 50,000 reais or, about 50,000 reais, that is about $10,000 or something like that. And then I said, okay, I will buy, let's say, one EMG device, right? And then I applied next year and I succeed buying, let's say, two force plates or something like that. And this was a grant in which you should justify that the equipment that you was buying could be used not only by you but by other researchers as well. A sharing model, right, of equipments.
Yeah. At your university or even across
Just the university, in the university,
universities
yeah,
at the university?
inside the
Yeah.
university. So in the first grant,
Yeah.
I have applied, let's say, with a physical therapy colleague, and the other one with colleague from engineering, and so on. After 3 years in a row applying and succeeding in this grant, one day um, Dean from the research office called me for a meeting. And the title of the meeting
Wow.
invitation was Your Devices. And then oh my God, Houston, we have a problem, right? What have I done? Something went wrong or something like that. And then I went to the meeting, and this Dean in his fancy office, he looked to me and looked at me and said, I can see here in your resume that 3 years ago you have applied and you bought a EMG device. And I said, yeah, and I said yes. And 2 years ago you have applied and you bought two force plates. And I said yes, and I was like this, right? Oh my God, what's the next question, right?
Bracing. Yeah.
And then he said, why don't you set up a biomechanics lab? And then I said, well, because a full set biomechanics lab, it's very expensive. It's 1 million, 2 million reais, right? That is, I don't know, let's say 200, two, I don't know even how to convert to dollars this amount of money, right?
Yeah.
And then he looked at me and said, well, I don't know if this is so expensive. If you can prove that this laboratory will be good for classes, research, and if you can prove the impact in the graduate program and in the undergrad programs.
Mm.
And then he said, well, I will give you two options. I will import this new device that you are asking, and that's it. Or I will not import this device that you are asking this year, and you go back to your office, you write a proposal, a full laboratory project showing that this laboratory will be positive for research, for classes, for the students and everything. And of course, you will have to show that professors from other fields will enjoy this laboratory as well. And then that was I did this. I wrote the project, applied for a full biomechanics lab, and my university started to invest money to build this laboratory. But then, in the middle of the project, when I was investing the money to buy the force plates and everything, because when this situation appeared, I said to the Italian guy from the devices, right? I said, well, I think we have a very good opportunity of business here. We can set up a full laboratory. So please advise me how I can build very good biomechanics lab. And he said, okay, so let's put 8 force platforms, and then you have a very huge sensorized floor, and let's put 15 cameras, and let's build a huge laboratory. But in the middle, the crisis appeared, right? We have a huge crisis, and then the money disappeared. And then I thought, oh my God, now I have a huge problem because I have 8 force platforms and non-cameras, I camera.
No
And then I
cameras.
realized,
Yeah.
well, this was a very bad planning, because it was better to have, let's say, 4 force plats, right? And some cameras instead of 8 force
Yeah.
platforms and no cameras at all.
No cameras. Yeah.
And so I was very very scared about that. And then the years passed by, and then there was a grant from the government for infrastructure and laboratories, and then we apply for this grant, and we succeed in having investments from the government, because that was a good thing about a communitary university like mine. we can apply for governmental funding also, like the public universities can do. And then
Right.
it was in the beginning of the pandemics that I was able to buy the cameras and then complete all the setup of the laboratory. So currently we have 8 force platforms, 10 kinematics cameras, and 2 EMG devices, and 1 inertial sensor.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. I think so many things stand out to me from that story. I think a big one being your perseverance and your ability to seek opportunities and then lean into them and go for it. And I think this vision of a bigger picture too, and that your idea to or want to actually build a bigger biomechanics laboratory that can serve other laboratories as well. Because I think through this too, something that's been really striking and making me think a lot is that with your work in a biomechanics lab, I think a lot of us are motivated to be in research, to be in biomechanics, to help people through our work. But it's been really interesting to hear how your work and your life is not only motivated by the impact of your research, but also how you're impacting the country and your community, and how that influence motivates you to um, to translate your research, to educate young people. And it's really fascinating to me to hear about, because I agree. I think education can really make a positive impact on the community, but and you're saying potentially decrease crime and things like that, and that's sort of like in parallel with your biomechanics lab, which other people can use now, and how that's supporting the advancements of science and research and helping people in that way too. And it's really amazing to see those two different motivations come together. And I'm curious with that. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I wanted to kind of circle back to when you talked about this innovation and entrepreneurship aspect that you're really excited about. And you even said previously that you want to discover a unicorn, and assuming that you don't mean an actual unicorn, which I would like to discover personally. Could you tell us more about what this means and why it's so important to you? You've shared a little bit about why that is so important to you, but if you could just tell us a little bit more about what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, this is something new in my career, right? This is something that started, let's say, 2 years ago, in the very beginning of the pandemics, when I started to work here in my university in a position that we call innovation agent. So, innovation agent is a professor in one of our schools, right? We have the medical school, the law school, the business school. So each school have a innovation agent, right? That is a professor that have the responsibility to promote innovation and entrepreneurship activities. We have a tech park here with a lot of startups and companies doing innovation and so on. So my job was to connect these two worlds, the university, the laboratories, the schools, and the tech park, the startups, and all the programs that you find right in this startup environment, this ecosystem of innovation, right? And then I was in a lecture or something from a professor given by a professor from the Hebrew University of Israel, and she was saying that the agriculture school of this university, research from this school, they have discovered the cherry tomato. You know cherry tomato?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah, do
discovered
you
it.
like cherry tomato in your salad? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're sweet.
So it seems like these guys from this university in Israel, they were the guys that discovered the how to genetically modify the tomato and have the cherry tomato, right? And they have a patent on this. And
Wow,
it seems
a
that
patent.
Mm-hmm.
just the royalties, right, from this patent were enough to pay all the costs of the university. So it was
Wow,
something,
Wow.
it's a successful
yeah, a
patent.
very successful patent. And the professor said during the lecture, well, we are a bit worried right now because this patent will end in about 5 years, and then the
Mm-hmm.
royalties will end too, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
are working now and investing in our researchers to find the new cherry tomato.
Yeah, I like
I
that.
like
Not
that. Instead of a
necessarily the
unicorn.
unicorn,
Yeah.
the
And then,
cherry tomato.
oh my God, this is so amazing, and this is so fascinating because right now maybe there is a researcher in a lab in my university studying something that can be huge, can have a huge impact, and maybe someone can identify the business potential in this research and help the researcher to
Mm-hmm.
do this spin-off, right? To move this research from
Yeah.
the lab to the market and have something like a cherry tomato. And in the innovation ecosystem, they have this word, right? Unicorn for companies, for startups
Right.
that are sell by $1 billion or more, right? So if you have a company, let's say, I don't know, Netflix, right? And then let's say that Universal Studios bought Netflix by $1 billion or more. So this is a unicorn, a startup that is sold by one
Mm-hmm.
billion dollars or more. And then I started to become obsessed by this idea of helping my university and the researchers to find their cherry tomato or to find the unicorn, right? Because if we can do that, imagine the impact for the society, for the economy, the impact
Right.
for our city or for our country, right? And of course, in terms of sustainability for the university, because we are not a public university, so we are non-profit, but we have to be sustainable, right? Imagine a
Right.
Mm-hmm.
research that is able to pay all the bills. So I started to
Yeah.
work
Yeah,
on that.
yeah. And I'm curious how you go about, so when for example you're looking for companies that might have, there might be, or technologies that there might be an opportunity or the potential for this, or you're finding something that has, you know, a big impact, but it's also feasible, and sort of this, it's just this right combination, it's the right time for this technology. Are those the types of things that you're looking for, like, and in your life, like how, when you're saying you're kind of obsessed with this and looking for it, like what does it look like to actually look for it? Do you meet with professors and who are, you know, coming out with new technology, or yeah, what does it sort of look like in your life to be involved in
That's
this?
right. That's a very good question. Well, like I said, this is very new, right, for me. And it started little
Mm-hmm.
by little 2 years ago. And then 2 months ago, I was invited to be the head of the innovation hub on health and life sciences in my university, right? So it was just 2 months ago that I started to work more seriously on that, because then
Mm.
they have
Mhm.
changed my work regimen. Now I have more hours to work on that. You know what I mean? I have a desk in the
Mm-hmm.
tech park to work, so it's something new in my
Mhm.
life. So I'm trying to find the way to do that. I don't have silver bullet yet or a correct answer to this. What I'm doing, tons of meetings. My calendar is full
Yeah.
of meetings, right? And uh, I am scheduling meetings with researchers, professors, with startups. I'm trying to reach companies, big companies as well, right? Because
Mhm.
since I am starting, I am doing a lot of networking and trying to do the connections and matchmaking, and try to find the
Mm.
way. One idea that came out is to have, let's say, a program that connect companies or startups
Mm-hmm.
with the laboratories or with the hospital, in the
Yeah.
way that let's
Yeah.
say if you have a startup with technology for the hospital, then you can test your technology in the hospital, but most of the
Yeah.
times you will need a clinical validation, a scientific validation of your technology in the environment of the hospital. So you can have research with medical doctors and validate your technology or device, and maybe this will help
Mhm.
you to transfer to the market. Another thing that we are doing, we did this last semester, a program called Hangar. This was a program where the main goal was transform your PhD thesis in a startup. So can you
Hmm.
see some opportunity, some business opportunity in your PhD thesis, in your research? Then bring your
Yeah.
research to this program
Mm-hmm.
and will help you to transform your research in a startup. And I was very excited about this program, but a little bit scared too, because I thought, well, the researchers, they will not like this program. They want to publish papers. Why they will apply to a program
Mm.
aiming to transform their research in a startup, right? In the end of the
Mhm.
day, we had 20 projects submitted, and
Wow.
10 final projects that they saw how to transform their research in a business model. And they we have a pitch day with all the presentations, and it was very interesting to see that we can do this spin-off from research to business, right? And this
Mhm.
is something that probably is common for you guys in USA, but here in Brazil is a bit new. Not all universities are doing this in Brazil right now.
Yeah, it's not as I think there are so many learnings from all of the things you've talked about, and it's not as common as you might think, but I think is becoming more common. And it's great to build these general frameworks that can be learned from by lots of other different universities, students, professors, countries. And it's so cool to see how much of a team player you are in so many areas of your life. You're connecting different people, you're connecting industry to academia, you're um, yeah, you're and being a team player not just for your lab, your university, but your country, like Melissa was saying earlier. It's just been amazing to hear all of your stories and experiences. So thank you so much for sharing all of those wonderful insights and learnings. And we usually ask about failure, but I think we covered sort of a fail with trying to set up your lab and getting 8 force plates, and then um, having a very unexpected change in the economic situation, and then kind of having to learn from that. But it was amazing as Melissa said, to hear how you persevered. And so we'd like to kind of skip to our last question about what you're excited for the future of biomechanics. It could be for the future of innovation, the future of entrepreneurship, whatever future you're excited about. But we'd love to hear your insights on that.
That's a very good question. Well, I think that I am very excited about the possibilities of the use of artificial intelligence, right, and machine learning in biomechanics. That, at least for me, it seems that are starting to appear in the last, let's say, few years, right? And working in the tech park, we have a lot of startups on artificial intelligence, right? They are using a lot artificial intelligence to solve this problem in hospitals. Artificial intelligence solve this problem in telemedicine and so on, right? And I believe that this is very exciting because not only is the application of a cutting edge technology, right, in biomechanics, that I believe is very disruptive. It's very innovative because normally in the classic biomechanics, what you have is you have a lab, you collect your data, you have the data processing, right, in MATLAB or so on, and then you have your stats, and that's it, right? And you have a paper, and that's it.
Right.
But now with artificial intelligence, the possibilities are much, much higher, right? To have tons of possibilities of use of artificial intelligence. And also by combining artificial intelligence, biomechanics, and machine learning, you have a lot of opportunities on innovation and entrepreneurship as well, right? So I'm very excited about what are the devices that can appear from now on, what are the companies that can be created from now on by using all these new technologies, right? So yeah, I believe this is
Yeah.
what is exciting me right now.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I think those are some of the things that we're also really excited about. And it's clear, I think, from your work about that you're passionate about this and excited about this and see the real impact and possibilities with it. So thank you for sharing all of that. And we will add a link we have your academic profile that we can share with listeners. Are there any other ways that you would recommend if listeners want to connect with you or follow you in your work? What is sort of the best way to do that?
Well, I think people can follow my work by LinkedIn, right? You can find me
Okay.
in LinkedIn by searching by Rafael Baptista, right? Baptista, the P silent, so it's Baptista.
Yep.
I always wanted to say this in English because I am a huge Tarantino fan, and there is the Django movie, right, from Tarantino. Do you remember Django? Yeah.
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 And Django, when Django is announcing himself, presenting himself, he say, "My name is Django. The D is silent." And I always wanted to say, "My name is Batista. The P is silent."
Well, you got it.
Yes,
We're gonna share.
yeah.
Maybe that will be the title of the episode.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that with us too. I think it's just brought such an amazing new perspective to I think definitely to us, and I'm sure our listeners as well. So we really appreciate you being on the show, taking the time to do that, and we're excited to stay connected and follow your work and see what this inspiration to find a unicorn,
Yes.
what it leads to. We really hope that
We'll invest in your unicorn.
Yeah, we have to keep up to date with
Thank
that. So, and wish all the best.
Thank you for
on that.
inviting me.
Biomechanics off our minds.